What's the best case of instant karma that you've ever seen? While working for the fire department, on a call for a multi-vehicle rollover accident on the interstate, we got on the interstate one exit away, running into traffic, so we moved over to the emergency lane with lights and siren. We were about halfway there and a BMW pulls in front of us trying to cut through the traffic. He didn't even look. I laid into the air horn and he came to a complete stop, with his middle finger out the window. I had a lot of people do stupid things when seeing lights coming at them, but this guy was being an ass for the sake of being an ass. He got out of his car and started screaming at us. Meanwhile, he was blocking the only fire engine and 2 ambulances available. People were really hurt half a mile away, and he was making his stand because we honked our air horn at him for blocking us. I looked out at my mirror to see a highway patrolman running between lanes towards us. He was pissed. BMW was immediately arrested. His pretty car got pushed out of the way into a ditch and he went to jail. The people in the accident were hurt bad, and 2 cars had to be cut open to get people extricated from bent metal. It was frustrating. I don't know how you didn't beat the living crap out of him. I would surely not have the patience, watching him get tackled and dragged into the mud, and then getting to push his car into the same mud kinda made it all worth it. Used to commute to DC from 40 miles away. Driving home one evening, this dude decides he must merge into my lane now, beeping and all. He pushes me off the road. The car behind me was a cop. As soon as I was on the shoulder, lights and sirens went on and the dude was pulled over. I'm in the NYC subway. A guy elbows me out of the way to get into the turnstile, first yelling vaguely that he has a train to catch, no sheet. Through the turnstile, turn the corner and there are a few cops set up near a folding table and he gets pulled to half. His bag searched. This crap is the worst. My other pet peeve is when the subway is coming to the next stop, and someone in the middle has to loudly declare, "Move out of the way, I have to get off." Yeah. So does pretty much everyone else on the subway. Wait your turn. Those people. Had a woman do this yesterday. She started pushing through to a door and didn't realize she pushed her way to the wrong side of the train car where the doors don't open. Even better, I had a lady come from the opposite end train door and push me out of the way for the only available open seat. I honestly would have given it to her willingly if she would have just asked or been polite. So she sits down and train takes off. Little did she realize that the seat is right next to a mother holding a newborn. 10 seconds into the trip, Jade baby spits up all over the lady who stole the seat. Vindication. A shoal kid in middle school kept trying to steal my cell phone. It was a cheap flip phone, but he'd do it just to piss me off. Our school had a rule that you couldn't have your phone out in class. Teacher left the classroom for a second to have a brief word with an administrator. Jerk-ass kid grabbed my phone. Teacher came back in a moment later and caught him right-handed with my phone out. She wouldn't believe it wasn't his phone. He got detention. My dad told me this story. He was driving back from the shore when traffic got really bad. About a mile ahead, there was an accident that had brought traffic to a crawl. Crap happens. My dad decides to be patient about it. Others weren't so patient. People began driving on the shoulder in order to get ahead of the traffic. This pisses my dad off. We all know how this goes. We do the right thing and are punished for it, whereas these assholes are skipping in front traffic and will probably get away with it. He thought about following this stream of cars onto the shoulder, but he decided he'd do the right thing and wait. As he got closer, he saw 2 cops in a parking lot. One cop was directing all of the shoulder drivers into the parking lot, while the other wrote all of those drivers' tickets. He describes it as one of the most satisfying things has ever seen. Not instant karma, but I remember in middle school I knew a kid that would go door to door, collecting donations for the walkathon, and he'd keep the money for himself. He used the money to buy video games with it. One day he loans his friend his game collection. His friend moved away with it. I used to be a zookeeper. This bench was making fun of our llama for looking ugly. The llama was a rescue who had corrective jaw surgery. The bench pointed and laughed at our llama. The llama spat in her mouth. I gave the llama a treat and told her that she was a good girl. I saw someone tailgating another car on a highway. There was a huge CRT lying in the road. The tailgatee changed lanes at the last minute and the tailgater slammed full speed into the TV. It was hilarious. Yes, I love that. Last week, there was some idiot weaving in and out of traffic going 30 miles faster than everyone else and slammed into the back of a stall 18-wheeler on the shoulder he was trying to use to pass more people. Am I the only one that wants to see someone do something good and then have something awesome happen to them? Karma isn't always bad. I went to a local playground with my sister and her kid, and as we walked in the gate, we passed two women chatting. One of them had a baby in a buggy and the baby dropped its toe. The mother wasn't looking, so I just picked it up, gave it back to the kid, and we carried on walking to a bench nearby. At the bench next to us was a woman with a little girl who was about 4. They were discussing something quietly, and then the mother said, "Okay, go on." As if giving in to the girl then proceeded to march over to me, say, "This is for being helpful," sticking a gold star on my arm, and then going back to her mother, "Gold star. Mother truckers." Some lady rolled down her window, yelled obscenities at me, flipped me off, then crashed into a pole going 40 miles per hour. What instant karma in driving have you guys had? At a friend's shop I was stopping by at, a lady's minivan was in for service and she had literally nitrogen monoxide, brakes, popped line, and no pads all the way around. She refused the service even when offered a largely discounted price. It was then we noticed that she had her kids with her, all 5 of them. My friend kept her busy with her car on the rack for about half an hour, while I called the police like he asked me to. In Illinois, shops cannot hold a vehicle hostage because it is not road safe. The cop pulls up outside, and she got about 1/2 mile away when she was pulled over. On top of her ticket, she had to pay $140 for the tow, and my friend gave her no discount for the service. She turned around and tried to sue him, but with the liability paperwork basically saying she knew what she was doing was dangerous and unlawful. It didn't get very far in court. We had something similar happen in Texas when I was in college. I was working at a shop. Some Porsche car comes in because the brakes are making noise. Yeah. It sounded like a brake lathe every time you hit the brakes. Popped the rear wheels off, and the brake shoes land on my feet. Like, the rear drums were trashed, backing plate spent, just screwed. We called the owner, tell her it's not gonna be cheap, and she flipped out, calling us thieves taking advantage of a single woman, etc., etc., etc. Let my boss deal with the crazy lady for a while, and eventually he came back and told me to put it back together, and she'd be taking her car with her. I look at him and say, there's no way in hell I can put it back together. The parts are broken. Then I notice the "I've got a secret" smirk on his face. Realize hilarity is about to ensue, and just put the parts back as best as I can. Still ended up with a Ziploc bag of bits in the passenger seat, but as soon as this woman's front tires hit public streets, blue lights everywhere. Turns out my boss called the state trooper who did our inspections for advice, and the trooper made a few calls. We never did do the work. Honestly, the car was so clapped out the brake repairs were more than the car was worth, and some customers aren't worth any amount of money. Today I quit my job of 6 years, effectively canceling my boss' vacation plans. Reddit, what stories of instant karma do you have? I'm a freaking terrible storyteller, but alright, I'll go first. I've worked at the same company for over 6 years. I was a loyal, good employee with a perfect track record. Over the 6 years I've only called in sick twice. I had the best results, the least amount of errors on paperwork in the whole region and quite possibly the whole country. My new boss decided that that wasn't enough. He minimized my hours, they get a bonus to keep labor low, expanded my workload, and never had anything nice to say. He seemed to think ruling with an iron fist is the way to go about this. Even after all this, I'm the one who kept his head above water, fixing his errors along the way. So today, I resign my position with immediate effect, which in terms cancelled his vacation plans for next week. On top of that, there is no one to fill my position. As soon as I mouthed the words "I quit," you could see the terror in his eyes. He realized how screwed he was without me and tried to do whatever he could to keep me for at least another week. I've never felt such a sense of instant karma as today. I never meant to cancel his vacation, but I wasn't going to put his needs before mine. I have bills to pay. I'd feel bad about it if he wasn't such a dog, but he's a dog. I worked as a database administrator for a community center for one summer in university. Basically, I created a database for them to track who was donating to them, and how much they were donating, and who was volunteering at the center and for how many hours. Very simple work, and despite being the youngest person on staff by about 25 to 30 years, I got along well with all of my coworkers except for my immediate boss, who was a total bench. The next spring, I was applying for jobs and emailed my old boss to ask for a letter of recommendation. Much to my surprise, she told me that she didn't write recommendation letters out of principle. I was pretty pissed. off about it because I was finding it very difficult to find a position and not being able to count on my most recent employer for a reference was a definite blemish on my resume. However, in spite of this, I managed to land a decent job. Lo and behold, my old boss emails me on day one of my new job, begging me to come in because she had somehow ignored all the warnings in the user documentation I wrote and moved some files around, rendering it impossible for her to access the database. She asked if I would come in and I emailed her back and told her I already had a job and couldn't do it out of principle, effectively rendering my entire summer at the center a waste of time from their perspective. I wish references would become a relic of the past. With the current work efforts being required by departments that are often down 1 to 2 people while requiring them to be more productive than ever, it's the previous employer holding you hostage. Leaving is an insult no matter how much notice you give, and if you're leaving because of a hostile work environment, they are not going to suddenly respect you. It feels something like the only reason you're really allowed to leave the previous job is because the company laid you off last. Same time, I left a job after 5 years and they completely obfuscated the process that people couldn't get work verification or referrals without paying a fee. I worked at a Kmart in high school. It was a small store, so I worked everything: electronics, stocking, cashier, you name it. I did it. I asked a woman and her son, about 12 or 13, if they needed help finding anything as I was out on the floor, and the kid immediately benches me out for annoying him. I ignore it and go about my business. Right after that I get called to checkouts. As I'm working there, here comes the pair. The kid has gone all out back in the electronics area, with some esports titles and a GTA game. I'm checking them out when the age prompt comes up for the M-rated game. I decide to take a chance. I flip the game over and inform the mother that this game has been rated M for the following reasons, and read the list off the back of the case. There is an awkward silence. Then she angrily informs me at the son said it was only a little violent. Kid wasn't able to get anything that day.